Don't you dare! The words, barely a whisper, slammed into the first-class cabin like a thunderclap. All eyes snapped forward. A flight attendant's hand, mid-air, aimed at Angela. But it wasn't Angela who spoke. Laya, all of 9 years, stood rigid, a tiny shield between her mother and the looming threat. The injustice of it sparked in Laya's eyes, a promise of quiet defiance no one on that plane could anticipate. Angela, haunted by a past that stole her voice, only offered a sad smile. They think they know her. They have no idea that her gentle spirit, that child's fierce loyalty, holds the key to tearing their whole world apart. Just wait until she unveils her late husband's name. Don't you dare! The words, barely a whisper, slammed into the first-class cabin like a thunderclap. All eyes snapped forward. A flight attendant's hand, mid-air, aimed at Angela. But it wasn't Angela who spoke. Laya, all of 9 years, stood rigid, a tiny shield between her mother and the looming threat. The injustice of it sparked in Laya's eyes, a promise of quiet defiance no one on that plane could anticipate. Angela, haunted by a past that stole her voice, only offered a sad smile. They think they know her. They have no idea that her gentle spirit, that child's fierce loyalty, holds the key to tearing their whole world apart. Just wait until she unveils her late husband's name. But to understand how we arrived at this charged moment, suspended between outrage and disbelief, 30,000 feet above the earth, we need to rewind. Back to a sun-drenched morning where a woman stood paralyzed before her reflection. Angela Morris, 36 years old, stared into her own eyes, searching for the woman she used to be, the woman before the crash. Now the reflection showed a stranger, one marked by sorrow and a profound, lingering silence. She inhaled deeply, bracing herself. My name is Angela Morris, she forced out, each syllable a painful shard of glass. The words shattered against the silence of her bathroom, incomplete, agonizing. From the doorway, Laya's bright voice cut through the tension. You're doing amazing, Mom. The exercises are really working. Laya, a small warrior in pink pajamas, possessed a maturity far beyond her 9 years. She had become Angela's voice, her shield, her unwavering support in a world that often lacked patience. Angela turned, a fragile smile gracing her lips, but the sadness lingered in her eyes. Looking at Laya, she saw James, always James, the ghost of her husband etched in her daughter's features, a bittersweet reminder of what had been stolen. The living room wall was a testament to that loss, a carefully curated collage of memories. Angela and James, beaming on their wedding day, James in his pilot's uniform, standing proudly beside a small aircraft, the embodiment of dreams realized. James, Angela, and baby Laya, a perfect family bathed in golden sunlight. And then the abrupt shift, the harsh black and white of a newspaper clipping. Aviation pioneer James Morris dies in crash. Below, a more recent photo, Angela and Laya, arms wrapped tight, navigating a world suddenly diminished. 7 years. 7 years since the small plane plummeted from the sky, taking James with it. Angela survived, but the traumatic brain injury silenced her, leaving her trapped behind a wall of fragmented words. James had built Morris Aviation from the ground up, a regional airline fueled by his passion for flight and his belief that air travel should be accessible to all. After his death, his brother David had taken the reins, transforming it into an industry giant. The Morris family retained a 30% share, providing Angela and Laya with a comfortable, yet modest life. She'd purposefully remained in the shadows, eschewing the influence her family's name afforded, wanting nothing more than to be seen, simply as Angela. Today, however, anonymity was no longer an option. Today was the 7th anniversary. Today, Angela was confronting her fears. She was honoring James by taking Laya to San Diego, to the very beach where he had proposed, a trip they had planned but never taken, a pilgrimage back to love and remembrance. She had booked the tickets months ago under her maiden name Collins, ensuring no special treatment, no preferential access. This was a test to see if the airline that bore her husband's name, the airline he had built on principles of integrity and service, still embodied his values. As they packed, the roles were clearly defined. Laya, efficient and organized, meticulously checked off items on a list. She'd learned to anticipate her mother's needs, to navigate a world that often refused to accommodate her. "It's okay, Mom," Laya reassured, zipping up the final suitcase. "I'll do all the talking at the airport." Angela's heart ached. "You shouldn't have to, baby." Laya looked up, her eyes reflecting a wisdom that belied her age. "We protect each other. That's what families do." In that moment, Angela saw James in Laya's steadfast gaze. Across town, in a world of mounting bills and quiet desperation, Denise Crawford, a 42-year-old senior flight attendant, was preparing for work. The morning had begun with a terse phone call with her ex-husband. "I told you I can't send more this month. My hours are cut," she hissed, her voice tight with anger. The strain of raising two teenagers alone was etched on her face, a constant reminder that no matter how hard she worked, it was never enough. The sting of being passed over for a promotion still lingered. The airline, transformed by the recent merger, favored younger attendants, seemingly erasing the years of experience that Denise possessed. Fear and insecurity gnawed at her, manifesting as a need to control, to assert her authority. At the airport coffee shop, she'd vented to a coworker. "These first-class passengers are getting more entitled every day." A pause, a shift in tone. "You can always tell who really belongs up there and who's just pretending." Her coworker remained silent, letting the unspoken prejudice hang in the air. Denise, fueled by a growing sense of resentment, pulled out her tablet and scanned the passenger manifest for Flight 278 to San Diego. First class was full, the usual mix of high-profile business travelers. She was determined to maintain standards, to prove her worth. At the airport, Angela's hands trembled as they approached the check-in counter. Every interaction with strangers was a challenge, a gauntlet of frustration and impatience. The agent, barely glancing up, greeted them with a dismissive air. I need to, Angela stammered. The words caught in her throat. The agent's smile vanished. "Bags," she enunciated slowly, as if speaking to a child. Leia stepped forward, her voice clear and confident. "My mom and I are checking 2 bags for Flight 278 to San Diego." The agent spoke only to Leia, ignoring Angela entirely. At security, the pattern repeated itself. Angela's halting speech drew stares. The TSA agent addressed Leia, treating the 9-year-old as the responsible adult. Leia squeezed her mother's hand. "Ignore them, Mom. They don't matter." In the terminal, Angela texted David. "Boarding soon. Nervous, but doing this for James?" His reply was immediate. "He'd be so proud of you, sis. You've got this." Leia spotted the first-class lounge, her eyes wide with wonder. "Mom, can we go in there?" Angela hesitated. The lounge sparked a memory, a vivid image of James years ago, his arm around her as they waited for a flight. "Someday, babe," he had whispered, "we'll fly first class everywhere. You deserve the best." Taking a deep breath, Angela squared her shoulders. "Yes, we can." On board, as Angela and Leia settled into their seats, Denise approached, her professional smile masking a flicker of disapproval. Something about them didn't fit her preconceived notions of who belonged in first class. "Good morning. May I see your boarding passes?" She examined them with excessive scrutiny, her gaze lingering on Angela with undisguised suspicion. "These are first-class seats? Are you sure you're in the right cabin?" As the plane prepared for departure, Denise noticed Angela drinking water from a branded bottle. "Excuse me, where did you get that water?" she demanded. "The lounge," Angela replied, confused. Denise's voice sharpened. "That lounge is for first-class passengers only." "We are first-class passengers," Leia retorted, her voice tight with barely suppressed anger. "You literally just looked at our boarding passes." Denise excused herself, retreating to the galley. From there, she made a call, her tone hushed and urgent. Other passengers began to notice the mounting tension, sensing something was amiss. Denise returned, her expression now tight with something akin to vindication. "Ma'am," she said, her voice laced with condescension, "the gate agent says your tickets were purchased with a discount code. A significant discount." The blood drained from Angela's face. Leia, her eyes blazing, shot back. "So what? The tickets are still valid, aren't they?" "I'm just ensuring everything is in order. We've had issues with fraudulent upgrades." Angela tried to explain, her stutter worsening under the stress. Bought? I'm sorry, I can't understand you. Can someone else explain what's going on? That was the tipping point. The moment Laya saw the open disdain, the blatant disregard, the underlying prejudice that targeted her mother. My mom is talking to you. You need to listen to her. Denise's voice turned sharp. Young lady, watch your tone. As Angela struggled with her seatbelt, her hands shaking uncontrollably, Denise watched with open scrutiny. Do you need help with that? She's fine, Laya snapped, her voice trembling. Can you please just let us be? I'm concerned about passenger safety. The injustice of it all, the implicit accusation, the blatant discrimination, the constant dismissal, coalesced within Laya. The memories of a lifetime defending her mother, shielding her from the callousness of strangers, surged to the surface. It all came to a head when Denise grabbed for Angela's boarding pass, a pass that represented a love story, a promise kept, and a dream being realized. Don't you touch my... Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut through every sound in that cabin like a knife. The entire first class went silent. Continued, his voice gentle. I met your husband once at an aviation conference in 2016. He was brilliant. He had this vision for making regional air travel accessible to everyone, not just the wealthy. I'm so sorry for your loss. Mrs. Thompson overheard, and her eyes widened. Wait, James Morris, the founder of Morris Aviation. Angela's voice was barely a whisper. Yes. And just like that, the word rippled through first class. That's James Morris's family. Morris Aviation. Isn't that the regional carrier this airline merged with 2 years ago? Sarah, standing in the galley entrance, heard it. Her face went pale. Denise, did you hear that? Denise looked up. Hear what? Sarah's voice was shaking. That passenger you've been harassing, her late husband founded Morris Aviation, the regional carrier we merged with, the company that's now part of our network. The color drained from Denise's face. What? All the pieces were falling into place, and the picture they made was devastating. She just humiliated the widow of the man who'd built a significant part of their airline. But more than that, and this was what really mattered, she'd humiliated a passenger with a disability, a woman who'd done nothing wrong, who'd paid for her seat, who deserved to be treated with dignity, regardless of whose widow she was. Robert overheard the conversation and immediately went to the cockpit. Captain Davidson listened to the update and then got on the phone. Get me David Morris. CEO's direct line. In a corner office at Morris Aviation's corporate headquarters, David Morris was reviewing quarterly reports when his phone rang. He saw it was the airline's operations center and answered immediately. David Morris speaking. The voice on the other end was Captain Davidson, and he sounded tense. Mr. Morris, this is Captain Davidson on Flight 278 to San Diego. We have a situation involving your sister-in-law and your niece. David's heart dropped. What kind of situation are they hurt? The captain explained everything. The harassment, the accusations, the panic attack. The 9-year-old girl standing between her mother and a flight attendant's raised hand. With each detail, David's anger grew, but it was a cold anger, controlled and focused. His response was immediate and unequivocal. Keep that flight on the ground. I'm sending someone from our San Diego office to meet them when you land. And that flight attendant, she's done. Not suspended, terminated, effective immediately. Captain Davidson's response was firm. Understood, sir. David's second call was to Angela. When she answered, her voice was shaking. Hey, sis, I just heard what happened. Are you and Laya okay? Angela's words came slowly, breaking apart. David, I didn't want SP special treatment. David's voice was gentle but firm. Angela, this isn't special treatment. This is basic human decency that you were denied. James built this airline on a simple principle: respect for every passenger, regardless of who they are or where they're going. That principle is being violated, and I will not stand for it. Angela tried again. She didn't know who I was. David's response cut to the heart of the matter. She shouldn't have had to know. Angela, you own 30% of this company. But even if you own nothing, even if you'd never heard the name Morris, you deserve better. So does every passenger who boards our planes. That's what James believed. That's what I believe. And that's what's going to happen from now on. The truth is coming out and justice is about to be served. But this story isn't just about one family or one incident. It's about how we treat people when we think no one important is watching. If you're invested in seeing how this ends, smash that like button and subscribe. And here's my question. Should the airline have known who Angela was, or should it not have mattered at all? Drop your thoughts in the comments because I want to hear what you think. Captain Davidson came over the PA system, his voice calm and professional. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We have a brief delay while we address a serious matter. I apologize for any inconvenience. Then he did something that passengers don't often see. He exited the cockpit and walked into the first-class cabin. He was a tall man with gray hair and a presence that commanded respect. He stopped directly in front of seats 2A and 2B, where Angela and Leia sat. Mrs. Morris. Miss Morris, I am Captain Robert Davidson. I cannot express how sorry I am for what happened to you today. Angela was embarrassed by the attention. It's okay. But the captain shook his head. No, ma'am, it's not okay. Your husband built this airline with a vision. Did you know that every employee manual we give to new hires still has his words in the front? Treat every passenger like family because trust is earned one flight at a time. We failed you today. We failed that vision. We failed your husband's legacy. He turned to address the entire cabin. Folks, I want you to know that what happened here today does not represent our values. We will be addressing this immediately and thoroughly. He walked to the galley and spoke to Denise. Miss Crawford, you need to come with me. Denise's voice was pleading. Captain, please let me explain. His response was final. Not here, not now. A ground supervisor boarded the plane, and Denise was escorted off with her bags. As she walked down the aisle, passengers watched in silence. Some recorded it on their phones. Some looked away, uncomfortable with witnessing someone's career end in real time. When Denise passed Angela and Leia's seats, she stopped. I'm sorry, I truly am. I didn't know who you were. And that's when Leia, this 9-year-old child, said something with wisdom that most adults never achieve. You shouldn't have had to know who we were. You should have just been kind. The simplicity of it, the truth of it, hit Denise like a physical blow. Her tears were real now. You're right, I have no excuse. I let my own problems, my own stress, my own biases hurt you, and I'm sorry. Angela did something surprising. Then she reached out and touched Denise's hand. I have forgive you be but you and need to do be better. Denise nodded, crying, and continued off the plane. Once she was gone, Mr. Hartman started a slow clap. Others joined in the sound building until the entire first-class cabin was applauding Angela and Leia. Angela was clearly uncomfortable with the attention, but Leia was beaming with pride for her mother, because that's what this was really about. Not revenge, not public humiliation, but a mother teaching her daughter that you can face injustice with grace, that you can be strong without being cruel, that forgiveness doesn't mean accepting bad behavior, but it does mean refusing to let hatred consume you. If you're still with us, if this story has touched your heart, subscribe because we're just getting to the most powerful part. And my question, what's one time you witnessed discrimination and wish you'd spoken up? Tell me honestly in the comments. No judgment, just learning. The flight was finally in the air, cruising smoothly at 37,000 ft. Robert Chen had personally taken over service for the first-class cabin, and his attention to Angela and Leia was professional but warm. The way service should always be. He brought Yela her chicken nuggets with a smile. Here you go, young lady, and I added some extra honey mustard just in case. Leia's eyes lit up. Thank you. Angela ordered her tea, and for the first time since boarding, she felt like she could actually breathe. As they settled in, the other passengers began to approach them, not with invasive curiosity, but with genuine warmth and shared stories. Mr. Hartman came over first carrying his coffee. Mrs. Morris, I hope you don't mind, but I wanted to tell you more about meeting your husband. It was at the Regional Aviation Conference in Denver 2016. He gave a keynote speech about democratizing air travel. I remember he said something that stuck with me. The sky doesn't ask for your resume or your bank account before it lets you soar. Why should airlines? Angela's eyes filled with tears. That sounds like M. James. Mr. Hartman nodded. He was passionate about it. After his speech, I went up to introduce myself. I told him I ran a venture capital firm and asked if he needed investors. You know what he said? He said, "I appreciate it, but I only take money from people who understand that profit and purpose aren't opposites." That's when I knew he was special. That's when I knew Morris Aviation would be something different. Mrs. Thompson came over next, and her story was different, but equally powerful. "I have a sister with cerebral palsy. She has difficulty with speech similar to you, and I've watched her face the same kind of treatment you experienced today. People talking over her. People assume she can't understand because she can't easily respond. People are treating her like she's less than human." Mrs. Thompson's voice cracked. "Watching your daughter stand up for you today, it reminded me that I need to be a better advocate for my sister. I need to be more like Leah." One by one, other passengers shared their stories. A businessman who'd grown up with a stutter and still faced judgment in boardrooms. A woman whose son had autism and was often excluded from activities because people didn't have patience for his differences. An elderly man who'd watched his wife develop aphasia after a stroke and saw how the world's compassion had limits. These weren't just random passengers anymore. They were people united by a shared understanding that dignity matters, that kindness costs nothing, that how we treat the most vulnerable among us defines who we are as a society. Sarah, the young flight attendant who'd been uncomfortable with Denise's behavior from the start, approached Angela's seat hesitantly. "Mrs. Morris, may I speak with you for a moment?" Angela nodded, and Sarah knelt down in the aisle. "I want to apologize. I saw what Denise was doing. I knew it was wrong, but I didn't speak up strongly enough. I didn't stop her, and I'm ashamed of that." Her voice was thick with emotion. "I was scared of contradicting a senior crew member. I was scared of causing trouble. I prioritized my own comfort over your dignity. And I'm so sorry." Leah looked at Sarah with those wise beyond her years' eyes. "But you did help in the end. You brought my mom water and a blanket. You told her you were sorry. That matters." Sarah wiped her eyes. "Your daughter is remarkable, Mrs. Morris, and if it's okay, I'd like to learn from this. I'd like to be part of the solution going forward." Angela reached out and touched Sarah's hand. Mistakes. What matters is what we do." After Robert Chun gathered the first-class passengers together for an announcement, "Folks, I want to thank you for what you did today. In my 23 years as a flight attendant, I've seen a lot of things. I've seen passengers look the other way when someone needed help. I've seen people record incidents on their phones, but never speak up at the moment. Today, you didn't just record, you intervened. You used your voices. You stood up for what was right, even when it was uncomfortable. That's the kind of community we need in the air and on the ground." He turned to Angela and Leah. "Mrs. Morris, Miss Morris, on behalf of this entire crew, I want to say that we are honored to have you on this flight. Your husband's vision built something beautiful, and from what I've seen today, his values live on in his family." The passengers applauded again, but this time it felt different. It wasn't about spectacle or viral moments. It was genuine respect, genuine connection. As the flight continued, Leah pulled out her iPad and started drawing. Angela watched her daughter's hands move across the screen, creating something beautiful. "What are you drawing, baby?" Leah turned the screen to show her mother. It was a picture of a plane in the sky, and standing on the wing, impossibly magically, was a man. He was smiling down at two figures visible through the window, a woman and a little girl holding hands. "I'm drawing Dad watching over us," Leah said simply, "because I know he is." Angela pulled her daughter close, and for a moment, she let herself feel everything she'd been holding back. The grief of losing James, the frustration of living with a disability that made simple interactions difficult, the fear that her daughter was growing up too fast, taking on burdens no child should carry, but also the gratitude. Gratitude for passengers who chose kindness, gratitude for a daughter who loved her fiercely, gratitude for a husband whose legacy was still changing lives 7 years after his death. Mr. Hartman approached one more time. "Mrs. Morris, I hope this isn't presumptuous, But I'd like to make a donation to the James Morris Foundation in your husband's name for scholarships for students pursuing aviation careers, particularly students from underrepresented communities. Angela was surprised. You know about the foundation? Mr. Hartman smiled. I do my research and I believe in supporting the causes that James believed in. Would $500,000 be helpful? Angela's mouth fell open. That was more money than the foundation typically raised in an entire year. That would be incredible. Mr. Hartman pulled out his phone. Consider it done. I'll have my assistant wire the funds tomorrow. Mrs. Thompson chimed in. I'd like to contribute as well. $50,000 from my family foundation. Another passenger added, count me in for $25,000. And just like that, because of one moment of standing up for what was right, James's foundation was going to be able to help dozens more students achieve their dreams of flying. Laya watched all of this with wide eyes. Mom, is this really happening? Angela nodded, unable to speak through her tears. This was what James had always believed in. That kindness multiplies. That standing up for others creates ripples you can't predict. That one person's courage can inspire a movement. Sarah returned with a special message. Mrs. Morris, the captain, would like to know if you and Laya would be willing to visit the cockpit after we land. He has something he'd like to show you. When the plane finally touched down in San Diego, the landing was smooth and gentle. As promised, Captain Davidson invited Angela and Laya into the cockpit. It was Laya's first time seeing where the magic happened, where pilots sat and controlled these massive machines that defied gravity. The captain pointed to a small plaque mounted near the controls. Angela leaned in to read it, and her breath caught. It was a quote from James. We don't fly planes, we fly dreams. Treat every passenger like they're trusting you with the most precious thing in the world because they are. Your husband wrote that for our company newsletter about 6 months before the merger. Captain Davidson explained, I had it made into a plaque for my cockpit. I read it before every flight. It reminds me why I do this job. He looked at Leia. Your father was a great man, and from what I've seen today, his daughter is going to be a great woman. Laya beamed with pride, and Angela felt James's presence so strongly in that moment. It was like he was standing right there with them. As they finally deplaned, David was waiting in the jetway, but he wasn't alone. He'd brought a small team from Morris Aviation's San Diego office, including members of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, but he'd also brought something else. In his hands was a framed photograph of James standing in front of the very first Morris Aviation plane. I thought you might want this for the trip, David said, handing it to Angela. A reminder that he's still with you, still proud of you, still guiding you. The San Diego staff had prepared a private car to take Angela and Leia to their hotel. But before they left the airport, David pulled Angela aside. Angela, I need you to know something. What happened today, it's not an isolated incident. We've been getting complaints, small ones, for months now. Things we dismissed as misunderstandings or one-off situations, but they paint a pattern of bias, of assumptions, of passengers being profiled. I've been too focused on quarterly earnings and merger integration. I lost sight of what matters most, our people, the passengers we serve, and the values James built this company on. His voice was heavy with regret. I'm implementing a full audit of our practices, every policy, every training program, every customer interaction report for the past 2 years. We're going to find where the gaps are, and we're going to fix them. Not with empty promises, but with real measurable change. And I want you and Leia to be part of it. Not as figureheads, but as genuine partners in this transformation. Will you help me make sure James's dream doesn't die? Angela looked at her brother-in-law, this man who'd stepped up when James died, who'd carried the weight of a company and a family on his shoulders. Weiss, she said, it will help. David nodded, visibly relieved. Thank you. James chose well when he chose you. He always said you were the strongest person he knew. Now I understand why. That evening in their hotel room overlooking the San Diego harbor, Laya and Angela sat together on the balcony watching the sunset. The same kind of sunset James used to love, painting the sky in impossible colors. Mom, do you think things will really change? Laya asked. Do you think what happened today will actually make a difference? Angela thought about it carefully. I think change is hard. People's biases, they're deep. They don't go away overnight. But today we planted the seed and the seeds they grow. Laya leaned against her mother. I was so scared today. When she raised her hand, I thought she was going to hurt you. And I just couldn't let that happen. Angela stroked her daughter's hair. You were braver than I've ever been. But Laya shook her head. No, you're brave every single day. You're brave when you order coffee, even though you know the barista might be impatient. You're brave when you answer the phone, even though you know you might stutter. You're brave just existing in a world that isn't built for people like you. I just had to be brave for a few minutes. You have to be brave forever. And in that moment, Angela realized something profound. Her daughter wasn't just protecting her. Laya was learning from her, learning that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward despite it. Learning that dignity is something you claim for yourself, not something others grant you. Learning that love means standing up, speaking out, and refusing to accept that the world has to be cruel. These were lessons Angela had been teaching without even realizing it. These were lessons that would shape the woman Laya would become. The viral video continued to spread. By the next morning, it had 20 million views. News outlets were calling it the bravest 9-year-old in America. Disability rights organizations were sharing it as an example of why accessibility and sensitivity training matters. Parents were showing it to their children as a lesson in standing up for others. And somewhere in the comments section, filled with thousands of responses, people were sharing their own stories. Stories of discrimination, stories of standing up, stories of change. One comment stood out to Angela when David showed her the next day. It was from a woman named Patricia, and it read, I'm a flight attendant. I've been doing this for 18 years. I watched this video and realized I've made some of the same assumptions, asked some of the same questions, shown some of the same impatience. I never thought of myself as biased, but seeing this, I realize I have been. Thank you to this mother and daughter for opening my eyes. I'm going to do better. That comment had 47,000 likes, and beneath it were hundreds of replies from other flight attendants, gate agents, airline employees, all saying the same thing. Me too. I'm going to do better. This was the ripple effect. This was a change beginning. Not perfect, not complete, but real. Angela showed the comment to Laya. Look, baby, look what your courage started. Laya read it and smiled. Do you think Dad would be proud? Angela pulled her daughter close. Your dad is the proudest in heaven. If you've stayed with this story, if you felt every emotion, if you're thinking about the Angela and Laya in your own life who need someone to stand up for them, then subscribe to this channel because these stories matter. These moments of choosing courage over comfort matter. And here's my question for you. Think about the last time you witnessed someone being treated unfairly. Did you speak up or did you stay silent? And if you stayed silent, what would you do differently now? Drop your honest answer in the comments. No judgment, just reflection. Because we all have moments we wish we'd been braver. The question is, what will we do next time? 6 months later, Angela and Laya stood at a press conference. The room was packed with journalists, airline industry executives, and disability rights advocates. David stood beside them as they unveiled the James Morris Dignity Initiative. It was a comprehensive training program that would be implemented not just at Morris Aviation, but offered free to any airline in the country that wanted to use it. The program covered disability awareness, unconscious bias, de-escalation techniques, and the importance of treating every passenger with respect. When it was time for Angela to speak, she walked to the microphone slowly. The room went silent, everyone waiting patiently. My husband believed that the sky should be for everyone, she said, each word carefully formed. Not Jade, people who look or sound a certain way. Not just the wealthy or the PE powerful, everyone. She paused, gathering her strength. He built his airline on that belief, and I want to make sure that his dream lives on. Leia stepped up beside her mother. My mom is the strongest person I know. She didn't need me to defend her that day. She's been defending herself her whole life. But I wanted to because that's what love is. Love is standing up when someone you care about is being hurt. Love is using your voice when someone else's voice isn't being heard. Love is refusing to accept that the world has to be cruel. The room erupted in applause. Mrs. Thompson's video had sparked a national conversation. Airlines across the country were reviewing their policies. Disability advocacy groups were consulting on new training programs, and Angela and Leah had become symbols of something bigger than themselves. They represented every person who'd been dismissed, every child who'd had to be braver than they should, every family carrying on after loss. The final scene of this story takes place on a beach in San Diego, the same beach where years ago James had gotten down on one knee and asked Angela to marry him. The same beach he dreamed of bringing his family to for a vacation they never got to take together. Angela and Leah were there now, building a sandcastle as the sun set over the Pacific. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink and purple, the kind of sky that looked like a painting, the kind of sky that made you believe in beauty and hope. "Mom, do you think we made a difference?" Leah asked, carefully shaping a tower with her small hands. Angela looked at her daughter, this incredible child who'd shown more courage than most adults ever would. "I think we reminded PE people that everyone deserves respect, that dignity isn't something you earn. It's something you're born with, and no one has the right to take it away. Sometimes the smallest voices carry the biggest truths." Leah Morris didn't just defend her mother that day on Flight 278. She reminded an entire airline, an entire industry, an entire world that dignity isn't about first-class seats or last names or how smoothly you can speak. Dignity is about recognizing the humanity in every person we meet. It's about treating a woman with a stutter the same way you treat a CEO. It's about understanding that disabilities don't make someone less worthy of respect. It's about choosing kindness when judgment would be easier. Angela and Leah continue to advocate for disability rights and airline passenger protections. They speak at conferences, work with legislators, and share their stories so that other families don't have to go through what they experience. Leah is now in high school, already volunteering with civil rights organizations, already preparing for her dream of becoming an attorney. She wants to defend people who can't defend themselves. She wants to use her voice for those whose voices aren't heard. She learned that from her mother, who gets up every single day and faces a world that isn't always patient, isn't always kind, but keeps going anyway because her daughter is watching, learning, becoming the woman she'll one day be. The photo of James, Angela, and baby Wheela sits on their mantle now, a reminder of what was and what could have been. But next to it is a new photo, Angela and Leah on that San Diego beach smiling at the camera. Their sandcastle behind them in memory of James Morris, who believed the sky should belong to everyone. Angela and Leah Morris continue to fight for dignity, respect, and equality in aviation and beyond. Leah is training to become a civil rights attorney because some voices are meant to change the world. Listen to everyone. You never know whose voice might change the world. You never know which act of courage might inspire a movement. You never know when standing up for what's right, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's scary, might be exactly what someone else needs to see to find their own courage. Angela and Leah showed us that strength comes in many forms. Sometimes it's a mother facing her deepest fear to honor her husband's memory. Sometimes it's a daughter standing between danger and the person she loves most. Sometimes it's passengers choosing to speak up instead of looking away. Sometimes it's a company choosing accountability over excuses. And sometimes strength is just getting on a plane when everything in you is screaming not to. Sometimes it's speaking even when your words break apart. Sometimes it's forgiving someone who hurt you because you refuse to let bitterness win. Sometimes it's being 9 years old and deciding that the world needs to be better and you're going to help make it that way. That's the legacy of Flight 278. That's the story of Angela and Leah Morris. That's what happens when love refuses to be silent. If this story touched your heart, if it made you think about how you treat people who are different from you, if it reminded you that we all have the power to stand up for what's right, then share it. Let it reach someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe to this channel for more stories that inspire change and remind us of our shared humanity. And here's my final question for you. What will you do the next time you see someone being treated unfairly? Will you look away or will you stand up? Will you be a bystander or will you be like those passengers who chose to use their voices for good? Tell me in the comments because your voice matters. Your choice matters. And together we can build the world that James Morris dreamed of. A world where the sky truly belongs to everyone.